Captain Lee Daeho stood on the bridge of the Earthship New Seoul, watching the stars through the large window. His hands were steady on the control panel, but his heart was beating fast. Today was the day humans would meet aliens for the first time. "Captain, we are getting a signal," said Lieutenant Kim Taemin from his seat at the communication station. "It's coming from the large ship ahead of us." Lee looked at the massive alien vessel floating in space. It was 3 times bigger than his ship and looked like a giant metal triangle. Strange lights blinked along its surface in patterns he did not understand. "Put the signal on the main screen," Lee ordered. The screen flickered to life, showing a creature unlike anything humans had ever seen. It had gray skin that looked like stone, 4 arms, and eyes that glowed with cold blue light. When it spoke, its voice sounded like metal scraping against metal. "I am Ambassador Thexval of the Velkari Empire," the creature said. "You are the species called humans from the planet Earth." "Yes," Lee replied, trying to keep his voice calm. "I am Captain Lee Daeho. We come in peace and hope to learn about your people." Dr. Park Mi-young stepped forward from her position near the science station. She was the team's expert on alien behavior and had spent years preparing for this moment. "We are honored to meet you, Ambassador. We hope this can be the start of friendship between our peoples." Thexval's eyes seemed to grow colder. "Friendship?" The alien made a sound that might have been laughter, but it was harsh and unpleasant. "We have studied your species for many months. You are weak creatures driven by feelings instead of logic." Lee felt his jaw tighten, but he kept his voice steady. "We believe our emotions make us stronger, not weaker." "Emotions," Thexval repeated with disgust. "We watched your recent war on the planet you call Mars Colony 7. Your soldiers cried when their friends died. They stopped fighting to help wounded enemies. This is not strength. This is the behavior of inferior beings." Engineer Choi So-ra, who had been quietly working at her station, looked up with anger in her eyes. Those soldiers showed courage and honor. They proved that humans care about all life, not just their own. "Care?" Thexval's forearms moved in what seemed like a shrug. "This is exactly what makes you unfit for the galaxy. In the Velkari Empire, we make decisions based on facts and logic. We do not let feelings cloud our judgment." Dr. Park stepped closer to the screen. "But emotion and logic can work together. When we care about something, we think harder and fight better to protect it." "Foolish," the alien ambassador said. "Let me show you what real strength looks like." The screen changed to show images of Velkari planets. Cities made of metal and glass stretched across dead landscapes. There were no parks, no trees, no signs of life except for the gray-skinned aliens moving in perfect lines. "We have conquered 12 different species," Thexval continued. "Each time we won because we do not waste time on feelings. We calculate the best strategy and follow it without hesitation. Your people would cry and hesitate. You would lose." Lieutenant Kim stood up from his station. "You're wrong. Human history shows that we fight hardest when we're protecting the people we love." "Love." Thexval said the word like it tasted bad. "Another useless emotion. Love makes you weak because it makes you think about others instead of yourself. In battle, thinking about yourself is what keeps you alive." Captain Lee had heard enough. "Ambassador, we thank you for this meeting, but we must disagree. Our emotions are not weaknesses. They are what make us human. And that," Thexval said, "is why you will never be worthy of joining the great civilizations of the galaxy." The alien leaned forward, its glowing eyes fixed on Lee. "However, the Velkari Empire is generous. We will give you one chance." "What kind of chance?" Lee asked, though he was already sure he would not like the answer. "Submit to our rule," Thexval said simply. "Accept that you are an inferior species. Work for us as maintenance workers and servants. Clean our ships, repair our machines, grow food for your betters. Do this and we will let your people live." The bridge of the New Seoul became very quiet. Lee could hear the soft hum of the ship's engines and the quiet breathing of his crew. He looked at Dr. Park, whose face had gone pale. He looked at Kim, whose hands had formed fists. He looked at Choi, who was staring at the alien with open hatred. "And if we refuse?" Lee asked. "Then you will learn what happens to species that think feelings are more important than facts," Thexval replied. "You will discover that the galaxy has no place for weak, emotional creatures." Dr. Park found her voice. "You're making a mistake, Ambassador. You don't understand what human emotions really are. When humans love something, they will do anything to protect it. When humans are angry, they fight with strength that surprises everyone, including themselves." "Pretty words," Thexval said, "but words do not win wars. Logic wins wars. Planning wins wars. Cold calculation wins wars. Your tears and love songs do not. Engineer Choi stepped forward. You think emotions make us weak? Let me tell you something about humans. When the colony ship Busan was attacked by space pirates last year, Captain Han chose to ram his ship into the pirate vessel. He died, but he saved 3,000 people. He did that because he loved those people more than his own life. You call that weak? I call that stupid, Texval answered. A logical being would have found a way to survive and fight another day. A logical being would have let 3,000 innocent people die. Choi shot back. The alien ambassador's forearms moved in dismissive gestures. Those 3,000 people were not his responsibility. His only responsibility was to himself and his mission. Captain Lee stepped closer to the screen. That's where you're wrong, Ambassador. Every human life is our responsibility. Every person matters. When one of us is in danger, all of us respond. That's not weakness. That's the strongest force in the universe. Prove it, Thexval said with that harsh laugh again. When we return with our war fleet, show us this strength you claim to have. Show us how your love and friendship stand against our weapons and ships. Are you threatening us? Lieutenant Kim asked, his hand moving toward his weapon. I am stating facts, Thexval replied. The Velkari Empire does not make threats. We make calculations. We have calculated that your species will surrender when faced with superior force. It is the logical choice. Then your calculations are wrong, Lee said firmly. Humans don't surrender when people we care about are in danger. We shall see, the alien said. We will return in 30 of your days. Use that time to think logically about your situation. When we come back, you will have your answer ready. The screen went dark. The massive alien ship began to move away from them, its strange lights fading into the distance of space. For a long moment, nobody on the bridge spoke. Then Dr. Park turned to Captain Lee. Sir, I don't think they understand us at all. No, Lee agreed, watching the alien ship disappear. They don't. And that might be the only advantage we have. Lieutenant Kim checked his instruments. Captain, I'm picking up scanner readings. They were studying our ship's weapons and defenses. They're already planning their attack, Choi said grimly. Lee nodded. Then we need to start planning too. But first we need to understand exactly what we're dealing with. He turned to Dr. Park. Doctor, I want to know everything about these Velkari. How they think, how they fight, what they believe. Yes, sir, Park replied. But Captain, there's something that bothers me about this whole conversation. What's that? They seem to really believe that emotions are weakness. Not just different, but actually harmful. That suggests something important about how their species developed. Lee looked out at the stars where the alien ship had vanished. 30 days, he said quietly. 30 days to figure out how to fight an enemy that thinks love makes us weak. Maybe, Dr. Park said thoughtfully. Love is exactly what will make us strong enough to win. 3 months had passed since the first meeting with the Velkari. Captain Lee Daeho sat in his quarters aboard the New Seoul, reading reports from Earth. The news was not good. Every day brought more evidence that the aliens had been watching humanity for much longer than anyone had realized. A knock on his door interrupted his thoughts. Come in, he called. Dr. Park Mi-young entered carrying a thick folder of papers. Her face looked tired with dark circles under her eyes from weeks of research. Captain, I have the psychological analysis you requested. What did you find? Park sat down across from his desk. It's worse than we thought. The Velkari haven't just been watching our recent conflicts. They've been studying human behavior for at least 5 years. They know about our families, our friendships, our traditions. Lee frowned. How do you know this? Lieutenant Kim found hidden scanning devices near several Earth colonies. When we analyzed them, we discovered they were recording everything. Not just military data, but personal conversations, family gatherings, even children playing. The captain felt a cold anger building in his chest. They were spying on our children? Yes, and that's what worries me most, Park continued. They weren't just gathering military intelligence. They were studying our emotional responses. Every time a parent hugged a child, every time friends helped each other, every time someone cried at a funeral, they recorded it all. Before Lee could respond, the ship's communication system crackled to life. Captain, to the bridge immediately, came Lieutenant Kim's urgent voice. The Velkari are back. Lee and Park rushed to the bridge where they found the crew staring at the main screen in shock. The view showed not one alien ship but an entire fleet. Dozens of massive vessels hung in space like metal predators, their weapon systems clearly visible. "How many ships?" Lee asked. 47, sir," Kim reported. "Each one bigger than anything in Earth's fleet." Engineer Choi Sora looked up from her instruments. "Captain, they're scanning us again." But this time they're not hiding it. The main screen flickered and Ambassador Thexval appeared. The alien looked exactly as he had 3 months ago, cold and emotionless. "Captain Lee, we have returned as promised." "I see you brought friends," Lee said, trying to keep his voice steady. "These are not friends," Thexval replied. "The Velkari do not have friends. These are ships of the Imperial fleet here to witness your surrender. And if we don't surrender, then you will provide us with an excellent demonstration of why emotions are weaknesses," the alien said. "We have studied your species carefully, Captain. We know exactly how to break you." Dr. Park stepped forward. "What do you mean?" Thexval's forearms moved in what might have been a gesture of amusement. "Did you think we did not notice your attachments to other beings? We watched you for years, learning about your bonds. Parents who would die for children. Friends who risk everything for each other. Soldiers who abandon good positions to save wounded comrades." The alien's cold eyes fixed on Captain Lee. "We know about your sister on Mars colony, Captain. We know about Dr. Park's elderly mother on Earth. We know about Lieutenant Kim's wife and 2 children on Luna Base." Lee felt his blood turn to ice. "You're threatening our families?" "We are stating facts," Thexval replied. "When we attack Earth's defenses, we will target the places where your families live. Your emotional attachments will force you to make poor tactical decisions. You will spread your forces thin trying to protect everyone you care about." Lieutenant Kim's face had gone white. "You monster. Those are civilians, children. They are weaknesses," the alien corrected. "Every person you love is a weapon we can use against you. This is why emotions make you inferior. A logical species would evacuate the civilians and focus on military targets, but you cannot do this because your feelings will not let you." Engineer Choi slammed her fist on her control panel. "You think targeting families makes you strong? That makes you cowards." "It makes us effective," Thexval said without emotion. "We have conquered 12 species using these methods. Each time their emotional attachments became their weakness. They made poor choices trying to save loved ones instead of winning wars." Captain Lee forced himself to stay calm. "Is that your final offer? Surrender or you attack our families?" "No, Captain. That was simply an explanation of why you will lose." The alien leaned forward. "Our final offer is this. Submit to Velkari rule immediately, and we will allow your species to continue existing as our servants. Refuse, and we will demonstrate why the galaxy belongs to logical beings." "How long do we have to decide?" Lee asked. "You have already had 3 months to think," Thexval replied. "But the Velkari are generous. You have until tomorrow at this time. 24 of your hours to make the only logical choice." The screen went dark. The bridge fell silent except for the quiet hum of the ship's systems. Dr. Park was the first to speak. "They're not just threatening us. They're trying to make us afraid for our families so we can't think clearly." "It's working," Kim said quietly. "My wife sent me a message this morning. My daughter just learned to walk. I can't stop thinking about them." Engineer Choi turned to face the captain. "Sir, what are our orders?" Lee looked around at his crew. These people had become like family to him over the years. The thought of the aliens threatening their loved ones made him angrier than he had ever been. But he also knew that anger without planning was useless. "First, we contact Earth Command," he said. "They need to know about the threat to civilian targets." "Sir," Park said hesitantly, "there's something else. I've been analyzing the Velkari's behavior during both meetings. I think I understand something important about them." "What is it?" "They don't just think emotions are weakness. I think they literally cannot understand them. When they talk about love or friendship, they use the words like they're describing a disease. They're not just different from us. They're missing something that every human has." Lieutenant Kim frowned. "What do you mean?" "I mean they might not be capable of emotional bonds at all," Park explained. "Think about it. They never mention friends or family. They talk about conquest and submission, but never about protecting anything they care about." Engineer Choi's eyes widened. "Because they don't care about anything except themselves?" "Exactly," Park said. "And if that's true, then they can't understand why we would fight harder to protect others than to protect ourselves." Captain Lee felt something like hope beginning to grow in his chest. "Dr. Park, I want you to dig deeper into this. If you're right, it might be the key to beating them. Yes, sir. But Captain, there's something else we need to consider. What? They said they've conquered 12 other species using these methods. That means 12 other civilizations tried to fight them and lost. We need to figure out what those species did wrong. Lee nodded grimly. And we need to do it in less than 24 hours. The next few hours passed in a blur of activity. Messages flew back and forth between the New Sol and Earth Command. Reports came in from all over human space as people prepared for war, but it was Lieutenant Kim who made the most disturbing discovery. Captain, he said, his voice shaking. I've been analyzing the scanner data from the Velkari ships. Sir, they're not just studying our defenses. What else are they looking for? They're mapping our emotional responses. Every time someone on our ship shows fear or anger or worry, their scanners record it. They're building a database of how humans react under stress. Dr. Park looked up from her research. That confirms my theory. They're treating our emotions like a weakness they can exploit. But Captain, I think they're making a huge mistake. How so? They assume that because we have emotions, we can't think logically. But human history shows that's not true. When we're fighting to protect people we love, we don't think less clearly, we think more clearly. Engineer Choi smiled for the first time in hours. They think love makes us weak, but really it makes us stronger. Exactly, Park said. They've studied our emotions, but they don't understand them. They see a parent crying over a hurt child and think it's weakness. They don't see that the same parent would move mountains to keep that child safe. Captain Lee stood up from his chair. Then we're going to teach them something about human emotion they don't expect. What's that, sir? Kim asked. They want to see how emotions affect our tactical thinking? Lee said, looking out at the alien fleet. Tomorrow, we'll show them exactly what humans are capable of when someone threatens our families. The bridge fell quiet again, but this time the silence felt different. This time it felt like the calm before a storm that would teach the Velkari the true meaning of human strength. Dr. Park Mi-young had not slept in 36 hours. Her small laboratory aboard the New Sol was covered with papers, computer screens, and empty coffee cups. She had been studying every piece of data about the Velkari, trying to understand how their minds worked. Captain Lee Dae-ho found her there at 3 a.m, staring at a wall covered with notes and drawings. Doctor, you need to rest, he said gently. I can't, Park replied without turning around. I'm close to something important, Captain. I can feel it. Lee looked at the wall she was studying. It showed pictures of Velkari cities, diagrams of their ships, and notes about their behavior during the meetings. What have you found? Park turned to face him, her eyes bright with excitement despite her exhaustion. Captain, I think I know why the Velkari are the way they are. And if I'm right, it changes everything. She pointed to a picture of a Velkari city. Look at this. See how their buildings are arranged? Each structure stands alone. There are no shared spaces, no parks, no gathering places. Every building is isolated from every other building. So they like privacy, Lee said. No, sir. I think it's more than that. Park moved to another picture, this one showing Velkari aliens. Look at how they interact. In every image we have, they stand far apart. They never touch each other. They never show any sign of personal connection. Lieutenant Kim entered the laboratory carrying a tray of food. Dr. Park, you missed dinner again. He set the tray down and looked at the wall. What are you working on? I'm trying to understand how the Velkari evolved, Park explained. I think their species developed very differently from humans. Engineer Choi Sora appeared in the doorway. Different how? Park picked up a tablet and showed them a chart she had created. Humans evolved in groups. Our ancestors survived because they worked together, shared food, protected each other's children. The humans who cared about others lived longer and had more children. Right, Kim said. That's basic human development. But what if the Velkari evolved differently? Park continued. What if their ancestors survived by being alone? What if caring about others was actually dangerous for their species? Captain Lee frowned. How could caring about others be dangerous? Imagine a world where resources are so scarce that sharing food means you die, Park explained. Or where predators hunt in packs, so the only way to survive is to hide alone. On a world like that, the individuals who formed emotional bonds would be the first to die. Choi's eyes widened. So the Velkari who survived were the ones who didn't care about anyone but themselves. Exactly, Park said. Over millions of years, they evolved into a species that literally cannot form emotional bonds. It's not that they choose not to care about others. They're physically incapable of it. Kim sat down heavily on a lab stool. That's horrible. Can you imagine living without ever loving anyone? They don't know what they're missing, Park said. To them, our emotions must seem like a mental illness. They look at a human parent sacrificing for a child and see insanity, not love. Captain Lee studied the chart on Park's tablet. This explains their tactics. They target our families because they think it will make us weak, but they can't understand that threatening our loved ones actually makes us more dangerous. Right, Park agreed. They're like someone studying a language they've never heard. They can see that certain sounds make humans react in certain ways, but they don't understand what the sounds mean. Choi leaned against the wall. So when they threaten our families, they think they're being smart. But really, they're just making us angry. More than angry, Park corrected. They're activating every protective instinct humans have. They're turning us into something they've never faced before. What do you mean? Lee asked. Park pulled up another screen on her computer. I've been studying the 12 species the Velkari conquered. I finally got access to the historical records through Earth Command's research network. What did you find? Something interesting, Park said. All 12 species that lost to the Velkari were logical, calculating civilizations. They were advanced technologically, but they made decisions based on cost-benefit analysis and strategic planning. Kim frowned. That sounds like it should have been an advantage against the Velkari. You'd think so, Park agreed. But when two logical species fight, the one with better technology and more ships usually wins. The Velkari had both, so what made the difference? Lee asked. The conquered species fought like the Velkari fight, Park explained. They calculated odds, made strategic retreats, and accepted losses when it was logical to do so. They never made the Velkari face something completely outside their understanding. Choi sat up straighter, but humans don't fight that way. No, we don't, Park said with a growing smile. We do things that make no logical sense. We sacrifice valuable resources to save single individuals. We take impossible risks to protect people we love. We choose certain death over abandoning our friends. The Velkari have never faced an enemy like that, Lee realized. Never, Park confirmed. For their entire history, they've fought species that think like they do. They've never encountered beings who get stronger instead of weaker when their loved ones are threatened. Kim stood up and began pacing around the small laboratory. So their whole strategy is based on fighting logical enemies. But humans aren't logical when it comes to protecting people we care about. That's right, Park said. They think they understand us because they've been watching us. But they've been watching us during peacetime. They've never seen what humans become when everything we love is in danger. Engineer Choi smiled for the first time in days. They have no idea what's coming, do they? None at all, Park replied. They expect us to make calculated decisions based on military advantage. They expect us to abandon losing positions and retreat when the odds are against us. But we won't do that if retreat means leaving our families unprotected, Lee said. And that's not all, Park continued, her excitement growing. I've been analyzing their ship designs and battle tactics. Everything is based on individual survival. Their ships don't have backup systems because they don't expect anyone to sacrifice themselves for the group. What does that mean? Kim asked. It means their technology has a weakness they don't even know about, Choi said, understanding immediately. They've never had a design for self-sacrifice. Exactly, Park confirmed. Their ships are built for crews who will always prioritize their own survival. They have escape pods and individual life support systems, but no redundancies for critical systems. Lee felt pieces of a plan beginning to form in his mind. Because they can't imagine anyone choosing to die for their shipmates. Right, and there's more, Park said. Their fleet formations are designed to minimize individual ship losses. Each vessel operates independently and retreats if it takes too much damage. But humans don't retreat when their friends are in danger, Kim said, which means they've never faced coordinated suicide attacks. Choi added grimly, or tactical sacrifices, Lee said, or crews who stay at their posts even when their ship is dying. Park nodded. Captain, I think we have an advantage they can't possibly understand. They've spent months studying our emotions, thinking they were finding weaknesses, but they've actually been cataloging our greatest strengths. They know we love our families, Kim said, but they don't understand that love makes us fight harder, not weaker. They know we form friendships, Choi added, but they can't comprehend that friends will die for each other. They know we grieve for the dead, Lee said quietly, but they don't realize that grief can become rage. And rage can become unstoppable determination. Park pulled up one final chart on her computer. Captain, I've run simulations based on Velkari tactics and human psychology. If we fight the way they expect us to fight, we lose badly. Their technology and numbers are too superior. But, Lee prompted, but if we fight the way humans actually fight when everything we love is threatened, the simulations show something very different. What do they show? Park smiled. They show the Velkari facing something they've never encountered in their entire evolutionary history. An enemy that gets stronger when hurt, more dangerous when cornered, and absolutely relentless when protecting loved ones. Captain Lee looked around at his crew. Kim's face was set with determination. Choi's eyes burned with protective fury. Park looked exhausted but triumphant. Doctor, he said, I think you've just figured out how to beat an empire. No, sir, Park replied. I've just figured out why we're going to win. The Velkari think they know humans because they've studied our emotions, but they don't understand the most important thing about human emotions. What's that? They don't make us weak, Park said firmly. They make us impossible to defeat when the people we love are in danger. Outside the laboratory windows, the Velkari fleet waited in the darkness of space, confident in their superior logic and firepower. They had no idea they were about to learn what happened when someone threatened a human family. The 24 hours had passed. Captain Lee Daeho stood on the bridge of the New Sol, watching as the Velkari fleet moved into attack formation. 47 alien warships arranged themselves in perfect geometric patterns, their weapons powered and ready. Captain, Lieutenant Kim Tae-min reported from his station, the Velkari are requesting our answer. Put them on screen, Lee ordered. Ambassador Thexval appeared on the main display, looking as cold and emotionless as ever. Captain Lee, your time is finished. What is your species' decision? Lee straightened his uniform and looked directly into the alien's glowing eyes. Ambassador, before I give you our answer, I want to show you something. Show me what? The truth about human emotions, Lee replied. He nodded to Kim, who switched the display to show feeds from across human space. The screen filled with images from Earth, Mars, Luna Base, and dozens of colonies. But these were not the images the Velkari expected to see. Instead of panic and chaos, they showed something extraordinary. On Earth, millions of people were standing together in public squares, holding hands and singing. Parents held their children close, but their faces showed determination, not fear. Elderly grandparents stood beside young soldiers, all of them wearing the same expression of quiet courage. What is this? Thexval asked, confusion clear in his metallic voice. This is what happens when you threaten human families, Lee explained. You thought fear would make us weak. Instead, you made us united. The display switched to Mars Colony, where Lee's own sister stood with her neighbors in front of their homes. They had built barricades not to hide behind, but to protect the children playing behind them. The adults carried tools and makeshift weapons ready to fight for their loved ones. Your sister, Thexval said, recognizing her from their surveillance files. She should be evacuating to safety. She is safe, Lee replied. She's exactly where she wants to be, protecting her community. The images continued. On Luna Base, Kim's wife stood with other military families, operating communication equipment and medical stations. Their children played nearby, watched over by teenagers who had volunteered to help. Everyone had a job. Everyone was part of the defense. This is illogical, Thexval said, his forearms moving in agitation. Civilians should flee from danger, not embrace it. You still don't understand, Dr. Park Mi-young said, stepping forward. These people aren't embracing danger. They're embracing each other. Engineer Choi Sora looked up from her instruments. Captain, I'm reading massive power signatures from Earth's surface. They're not just standing together. They're standing together at every military installation, every spaceport, every communication center. Lee smiled grimly. Ambassador, you studied our emotions and thought you found weaknesses. But you missed the most important thing about human feelings. Which is what? Thexval demanded. When you threaten someone we love, you don't just threaten one person. You threaten all of us. Lee gestured to the images on the screen. Every human in the galaxy has someone they care about. Parents, children, friends, neighbors. When you declared war on our families, you declared war on every single one of us. The display showed more scenes. Scientists had left their laboratories to operate defense systems. Teachers had organized evacuation centers for children. Farmers had converted their equipment into mobile repair units for military vehicles. Impossible, Thexval said. Our calculations showed that emotional attachment would divide your forces. You would spread your defenses thin trying to protect everyone. Your calculations were wrong, Kim said. You assumed we would choose between protecting ourselves and protecting others. But humans don't make that choice. We protect ourselves by protecting others, Choi added. We protect others by protecting ourselves. It's the same thing. The alien ambassador's eyes flickered with something that might have been uncertainty. You cannot all fight. You do not have enough weapons or ships. We don't need them, Lee replied. He nodded to Kim again, and the display showed feeds from Earth's orbital stations. What they revealed made even the hardened crew of the New Sol gasp in amazement. Civilian cargo ships were being fitted with mining lasers and ramming prows. Passenger vessels had been converted into mobile hospitals and communication centers. Even small personal craft were being armed with whatever weapons their owners could find. Every ship, Park explained to the bewildered alien. Every captain. Every crew. They all volunteered. This is not possible, Thexval said. But his voice lacked its usual confidence. You do not have the military discipline for such coordination. We don't need military discipline, Lee said. We have something better. We have love. The bridge of the New Sol was quiet for a moment. Then Kim's voice broke the silence. Captain, I'm detecting movement from the Valkyrie fleet. They're beginning their attack. Let them come, Lee said calmly. Lieutenant, open a channel to all human vessels. Channel open, sir. Lee took a deep breath. This is Captain Lee Daeho to all human forces. Today, the Valkyrie Empire has chosen to threaten our families, our children, our loved ones. They believe that emotions make us weak. They believe that caring about others makes us easy to defeat. He paused, looking around at his crew. They're about to learn how wrong they are. Every person listening to this message has someone they love. Someone worth fighting for. Someone worth dying for. The Valkyrie can't understand this because they've never felt it. The captain's voice grew stronger. Today we fight not as separate ships or separate colonies, but as one human family. Today we show the galaxy what happens when you threaten people we love. Across human space, thousands of voices responded at once. For our families. For our children. For humanity. The Valkyrie fleet opened fire, their advanced weapons lighting up the darkness of space. But they were not facing the enemy they expected. Instead of military formations trying to minimize losses, they encountered something that had never existed in their calculations. Civilian ships charged directly into the alien battle line, their mining lasers and improvised weapons blazing. When their shields failed, they rammed enemy vessels rather than retreat. When their engines died, their crews continued fighting from dead ships. This is madness, Thexval screamed from the communication screen. Your people are dying for no logical reason. They're dying for the best reason in the universe, Lee replied calmly. They're dying for love. A cargo ship called the Incheon Trader had taken massive damage from 3 Valkyrie cruisers. Its captain, an elderly woman named Nahewan, refused all orders to retreat. Instead, she piloted her burning ship directly into the largest enemy vessel, taking out its main weapons array. Why? Thexval demanded, watching the destruction. Why do they choose death when they could escape? Because escape means leaving others to die, Park explained. And humans don't do that. On the screen, Kim's tactical display showed the battle developing in ways no military computer had ever predicted. Human ships were fighting in clusters, each group protecting the others. When one vessel was damaged, others would surround it, sacrificing themselves to keep it alive. Their formation makes no sense, Choi reported, analyzing the Valkyrie response. They're designed for individual ship combat, but we're fighting as one enormous organism. They can't adapt, Kim realized. Their whole military doctrine assumes that damaged ships will retreat to save themselves. But our ships don't retreat when their friends are in danger, Lee said. The battle raged for hours. The Valkyrie had superior technology and firepower, but they had never faced an enemy that fought with complete disregard for individual survival. Human crews stayed at their posts even when their ships were dying. Rescue vessels flew into impossible danger to save friends. Civilian volunteers charged enemy battleships with nothing but mining equipment and desperate courage. This is impossible. Thexval's voice had lost all its cold control. You should have broken hours ago. Your losses are enormous. Our losses are acceptable, Lee replied simply. Every person who dies today dies protecting someone they love. That's not a loss. That's victory. On the tactical display, the pattern was becoming clear. The Velkari fleet was winning individual battles but losing the war. Their ships were designed to fight logical enemies who would retreat when damaged. They had no defense against opponents who fought harder when hurt. "Captain," Kim reported, "the Velkari formation is starting to break apart. Their ships are retreating individually instead of maintaining formation." "They can't understand coordinated sacrifice," Choi said. "It's outside their programming." Lee watched as more human ships threw themselves at the enemy fleet. A mining vessel called the Gangwon had lost all its weapons but continued ramming Velkari fighters. A hospital ship called the Sole Hope was using its medical lasers to blind enemy sensors, while civilian cargo ships attacked. "Ambassador," Lee said to the increasingly frantic alien on the screen, "your people have never faced an enemy like us. This is not warfare." Thexval shouted, "This is mass suicide." "No," Park said quietly. "This is love. This is what happens when you threaten a human family." The display showed Thexval's own ship, massive and heavily armed, being swarmed by a dozen small human vessels. Each one was damaged and outgunned, but they fought with the ferocity of parents protecting their children. "You cannot win," the alien ambassador cried. "We have superior technology." "Superior numbers." The battle had been raging for 8 hours. Captain Lee Daeho sat in his command chair, blood running down his face from a wound caused by flying debris. The new Sol was badly damaged but still fighting. Around him, his crew continued their duties despite injuries and exhaustion. "Captain," Lieutenant Kim Taemin called out, his voice hoarse from shouting orders. "The Velkari fleet is falling back to defensive positions." Lee looked at the tactical display. Of the 47 Velkari ships that had attacked, only 23 remained in fighting condition. But the human losses were even worse. Hundreds of ships had been destroyed, thousands of brave people had died. Yet somehow, the humans were winning. "Their formation is completely broken," Engineer Choi Sora reported from her damaged station. "They're fighting as individual ships now, not as a fleet." Dr. Park Mi-young, who had a bandage wrapped around her left arm, studied the readings on her screen. "Captain, something's happening to the Velkari crews. Their communication patterns are changing." "What do you mean?" "I'm picking up emotional stress markers in their transmissions," Park explained. "Fear, confusion, uncertainty, things I've never detected from them before." On the main screen, Ambassador Thexval appeared again, but the cold, controlled alien Lee had met months ago was gone. Thexval's forearms moved in jerky, agitated gestures. His glowing eyes flickered rapidly. His metallic voice carried new tones that sounded almost like panic. "This must stop," the ambassador shouted. "Your people continue to fight even when defeat is certain. Your ships attack even when they have no hope of survival." "Yes," Lee replied simply. "That's what humans do when their families are threatened." "But why?" Thexval demanded. "We have destroyed hundreds of your vessels. Thousands of your people are dead. Any logical species would surrender to prevent further losses." "Any logical species would," Lee agreed. "But humans aren't just logical. We're emotional. And our emotions tell us that some things are worth dying for." "This makes no sense." The alien's voice cracked with something that sounded like desperation. "Death serves no purpose. The dead cannot protect anyone." Dr. Park leaned forward. "Ambassador, may I ask you something?" "What?" Thexval snapped. "In your entire life, has anyone ever died to protect you?" The question seemed to surprise the alien. "Why would they? My death or survival is my own responsibility. And has anyone ever been willing to sacrifice something important to make you happy? Happiness is not. We do not." Thexval's words trailed off. "Have you ever had anyone you would give your life to protect?" Park pressed. The alien ambassador was quiet for a long moment. "These concepts are meaningless to Velkari. We do not form such attachments." "Then you don't understand what you're fighting," Lee said gently. "Every human in this battle has someone they love more than their own life. When you threatened to attack our families, you didn't make us weaker. You made us something you've never encountered before." "What?" "Unstoppable," Kim said from his station. Just then, alarms began sounding throughout the ship. "Captain," Choi called out, "my engine readings are critical. We've taken too much damage. The reactor is going to explode in less than 10 minutes. Lee felt his heart skip a beat. "Can we evacuate?" "The escape pods were damaged in the last attack," Choi replied. "But sir, I can manually stabilize the reactor. It would give us enough time to ram that Velkari command ship and take out their main communication array." Choi, no, Lee said firmly. I won't ask you to sacrifice yourself. The engineer smiled, and for the first time in hours, it was a genuinely happy expression. Captain, you're not asking. I'm volunteering. My husband and children are on Luna Base. If we take out that command ship, it might give our defense fleet the advantage they need. Lee started to protest, but Choi was already moving toward the engine room. Wait, he called after her. She paused at the doorway and turned back. Way? Lee asked, echoing Thexaval's constant question. Why are you willing to die for people you'll never see again? Choi's smile grew wider. Because they're not strangers, Captain. They're family. Every human in this galaxy is part of my family, and you protect family no matter what. She disappeared into the engine room. On the communication screen, Ambassador Thexval watched this exchange with growing confusion. She is going to her death voluntarily, the alien said, as if he couldn't believe what he was seeing. Yes, Park replied. Because she loves her husband and children and she loves her human family. But she will never see them again. That doesn't matter, Lee explained. Love isn't about getting something back. It's about giving everything you have to protect what matters most. The ship shuddered as Choi began her work in the engine room. Over the internal communication system, her voice came through clearly. Reactor stabilized, Captain. You have 15 minutes to reach the Velkari command ship. Choi, Lee said into his microphone, there's still time to get you out of there. No, sir, came her cheerful reply. Someone needs to keep the engines running. Besides, I can think of worse ways to spend my last few minutes than helping my family. The new soul began moving toward the massive Velkari command vessel. Around them, other human ships were doing the same thing. Damaged vessels that should have retreated were instead making final attack runs. Ships with no weapons left were ramming enemy targets. This is madness, Thexval whispered, but his voice no longer carried conviction. No, Dr. Park said quietly. This is love. This is what you called weakness. On the tactical display, they watched as the human cargo ship Pusan Dream slammed into a Velkari cruiser. The civilian vessel was completely destroyed, but it took the enemy ship with it. In his final transmission, the ship's captain had been singing a lullaby his daughter had taught him. Why do they sing when they are dying? Thexval asked, and for the first time his voice carried something other than cold logic. It carried pain, because they're thinking about the people they love, Kim explained. Because even in death, love makes them happy. The alien ambassador's forearms trembled. I do not understand. If love causes such pain, such sacrifice, such death, why do humans choose it? Because without love, life has no meaning, Lee said softly. You've conquered 12 species, Ambassador. But have you ever been truly alive? Thexval stared at him silently. Around them, the battle continued. Human ships threw themselves at Velkari vessels with reckless courage. The enemy fleet, designed to fight logical opponents, couldn't adapt to this new form of warfare. Captain, Choi's voice came over the intercom, weaker now but still determined. 5 minutes until we reach the command ship. The reactor will hold until then. Choi, Lee said, is there anything you want us to tell your family? Tell them I love them, she replied. Tell them I'm proud to be human. And tell them that love isn't weakness. Love is strength that never breaks. On the screen, Thexval watched as more human ships made their final attacks. A hospital vessel called the Daegu Angel was using its medical equipment to jam Velkari communications while civilian miners destroyed enemy fighters. They are all going to die, the alien said, and something in his voice had changed completely. Yes, Park agreed. Many of them will, but their children will live. Their families will be safe. Their sacrifice will be remembered. Remembered? Thexval asked. That's what humans do, Kim explained. We remember the people who died for love. We tell their stories. We make sure their sacrifice means something. For the first time in the conversation, the alien ambassador seemed to struggle with words. The Velkari do not. We do not remember our dead. When someone dies, they are simply gone. How terrible, Park said with genuine sympathy. To live without being loved and to die without being remembered. The new soul was almost within ramming distance of the Velkari command ship. Around them, the remnants of the human fleet continued their desperate assault. Ships that should have been destroyed hours ago kept fighting with jury-rigged weapons and unbreakable determination. This cannot continue, Thexval said. but his voice now carried something the humans had never heard from a Velkari before. It carried emotion. Too many are dying. Too much is being lost. Now you understand, Lee said gently. That feeling you're having right now, that sense of loss and waste and pain, that's what humans call regret. Dexval's glowing eyes flickered rapidly. Regret? It's what happens when you realize you've made a terrible mistake, Park explained. When you understand that things could have been different if you had chosen differently. The alien began, then stopped. I do not know how to process this sensation. Just then, ships began appearing on the edge of the star system. Dozens of them, then hundreds. Human vessels from colonies across the galaxy, arriving in response to Earth's call for help. More ships, Kim reported in amazement. From Alpha Centauri, Wolf 359, Barnard's star. Every human colony is sending help. The newcomers immediately joined the battle, but they weren't just military vessels. Colony ships, mining platforms, even pleasure craft had been converted to fighting ships. Families who had never seen Earth were risking everything to protect the human homeworld. Why? Dexval asked, watching the reinforcements arrive. These people are not related to Earth's population. They gain nothing from this sacrifice.